You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's February the 22nd, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your cannabis and psychedelic news source. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How you doing?
Good morning, Al. I'm well. How are you?
Not doing too bad. Not doing too bad. You know, the big bad muscle that wants to kick out at me every once in a while is behaving this morning, so we're good.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
It's always nice
yes.
when the muscles decide that they're going to behave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. It's just been an issue lately, but life carries on, right? The sun is shining, and we are here to do the news.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Well, what do you say? Anything new exciting you want to mention before we get into the news?
Not overly right now. No, I think we're good.
Okay, good. The snow's all that's all settled down.
We haven't had snow, but we're still waiting for it to melt. What was here before?
Yeah. I'll tell you, ours has been melting. Ours is melting. There's no doubt about that. So, all right, but there's probably some more due to show up at some point. But other than that, let's get to the news.
Okie dokie. Heading over to our first story of the day, coming to us from StratCan. A Manitoba cannabis brand is taking a former partner to court.
Correct. Several Manitoba cannabis companies are at the heart of a notice of claim recently filed in a Manitoba court. Toba Grown Inc. and Toba Rolling Inc. filed a notice of claim in Manitoba on February the 16th against the owners of Keef Cannabis Company Limited and Lucky Ventures. The defendants have 20 days to reply to the notice.
In the claim, Jesse Lavoie, who is the owner of Toba Grown and Toba Rolling, claims that the owners of two other Manitoba cannabis businesses unfairly removed him from a business partnership, causing his own companies to suffer significant financial hardship. Toba Grown's lawyers contend that the principal of and a shareholder in Keef Cannabis, Jesse Denton, entered into an agreement with Lavoie to allow Toba Rolling to distribute its Toba Grown and other branded cannabis products from Keef's federally licensed facility.
The claim also contends that Lavoie and Denton entered into an agreement with another Manitoba cannabis entrepreneur, Tim Dorkson, to create the cannabis brand Lucky Stash for the Manitoba market. Although the agreement between Toba Grown and Keef was fruitful, the claim alleges Denton terminated the agreement in 2023, effectively locking the company and its partners' brands out of not only the Keef facility, but the Manitoba market entirely. Toba Grown now claims that Keef is in breach of contract, owing Toba more than $100,000, as well as equipment and cannabis held at the facility.
It also contends that the Denton violated his fiduciary duties to the business arrangement, causing Toba Grown to suffer damages it says he is liable for, and that both defendants acted with an intent to injure the economic interest and reputation of Lavoie and the Toba brand. These allegations have not been proven in court. Neither Denton nor Keef responded to requests for comment.
There you go. I remember doing some news articles on what he was doing with those. He was raising money and stuff. It was a court challenge. That's right. The court challenge there at one time. So now that, yeah. So he was doing something with the money that they were creating from the sales, right?
Wow,
Challenging cannabis laws. So, all right, on to the next story.
Coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference, Health Canada, cannabis samples are permitted.
Samples. Nearly every industry built on consumables, from the food industry to pharmaceuticals, product samples play a vital role. After all, the saying, the proof is in the pudding, is predicated on the premise that someone is actually trying out the metaphorical pudding to determine if it is the real deal. Product samples are particularly important in the emerging cannabis industry, given the fact that cannabis can vary widely in quality, effectiveness, and other desirable traits such as smell and flavor. There are many varieties of cannabis, and even the same grower cultivating the same cultivar can yield differing results due to a multiple of environmental factors.
Yes, matters get even more complex for cannabis producers that are derived from cannabis products that are derived from cannabis flower. In addition to the intricacies of the cannabis crop itself, adding the extra layers of extracting techniques that produce concentrates from flower or infusing cannabis into edibles, drinkables, or topicals complicates knowing what the final product may be like. Trying these product samples is the only way for retailers and their employees to know what a cannabis product is truly like. And there seems to be some confusion in Canada about whether or not cannabis producers can provide samples to licensed retailers and their employees. That confusion was cleared up recently via original reporting by StratCan per excerpts from their reporting.
In an email to StratCan, Representative of Health Canada affirms that the federal licensed cannabis producers are not prohibited from providing a sample of cannabis to a provincially or territory authorized retailer or their employees. Employees of a provincial or territorial authorized retailer are not prohibited from possessing, distributing, or selling cannabis, provided they do so as part of their employment duties and functions, and in a manner that is consistent with the conditions that apply to the employer's authorizations. In other words, it's up to PTs, which are the provinces and territories, to regulate whether and how employees of retail stores can possess, distribute, and potentially consume free samples in the context of their employment duties and functions. Each province or territory could have an additional legislation that relates to this type of activity.
StratCan followed up with 4 individual provinces to confirm that they expressly permit product samples at the local level. Those provinces are British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. Of the 4 provinces, Saskatchewan and Ontario have permitted product samples to retailers and their employees since the start of adult use legalization in late 2018. British Columbia and Alberta started expressly permitting such activity last year. Health Canada also lists the following information regarding product samples.
I remember the first time I saw this sampling that was going on, and I wondered what was going on, because I could see some stuff, cannabis in around the tables, and I could see these packages being passed to people, and they had pieces of paper that they were handing to the people at the booths. Well, as time goes on, that's what I found out that they were doing. They were getting the samples. Bud tenders were getting samples, and the paper was just basically something was indicated on them or marked on them, so they could keep track of how much they got, and then that way that they knew where they got from, as well as they didn't overpossess their limit when they left the event. So
cool.
Yeah. So it's just hopefully someday it spreads a little further, but they have to have can sell, and each event has their own requirements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, free samples of products or accessories. They say a person that sells cannabis or cannabis accessories cannot provide or offer to provide cannabis or a cannabis accessory without consideration or in consideration of a purchase. For example, a free accessory for the purchase of cannabis or cannabis as a bonus with any schedule. This can include
free 1 gram pre-roll samples, free rolling papers with purchase of cannabis product X. Buy one, get one free. A nominal amount of monetary consideration may be considered for an inducement or non-complaint with subsection 24(1)(a) of the Cannabis Act.
Yeah. So you're like, when you go into the liquor store, you used to get those little bottles on the big bottles. They can't do that with the cannabis in it because it's an enticement, right? So, license holders that provide samples to a person authorized to sell cannabis, such as provincially or territorially authorized retailers, are exempt from this prohibition. However, the retailer may not provide samples to consumers. Cannabis samples must comply with the other applicable rules in the Cannabis Act and cannabis regulations, including those on packaging and labeling and good production practices.
Each province or territory may have additional legislation that could apply to this type of activity, so regulated parties should be familiar with all relevant legislation and consult with provinces and territories as applicable. And for more information, refer to subsection 24.2 of the Cannabis Act or 24.3 as it pertains to cannabis accessories, if you're curious.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So that's one step. It's going to the bud tenders for that. As a way for them to learn about the products. Let's just hope that down the road that it allows them to be giving out samples to everybody.
Or even if they sell them at cost, these samples to people, they produce an ID saying you're over the age of 19 or something like that, depending on what province that you're in. And that'll give the ability for things like, festivals like, the Karma Cup, like we used to know it, to come back and do something that will be fun and entertaining and educational for people like you and I.
Yeah, well, Alberta, they've started that. So let's hope that it spreads across the country like a wildfire. It takes right over. Let's do it. All right, on to our next story.
Coming to us from High Times. Does cannabis share psychedelic properties? A comparative study with LSD reveals insights.
Interesting. LSD and psilocybin are known for their capacity to enhance the complexity or diversity of brain activity, but does THC work in the same way? Contrary to LSD and what are traditionally termed classic psychedelics, THC mimics the action neurotransmitters known as endocannabinoids. These transmitters reversely transmit signals across brain synapses, crucial in controlling neural activity. THC's influence can lead to infamous and reverse effects such as euphoria, getting the munchies, and stress relief. But as Psychology Today asks, as have so many before them, if cannabis counts as a psychedelic? New research examines the science to find out.
Well, before we go any further, a simple yes or no. Do you think cannabis is a psychedelic?
And, I never really thought of it being that way. I guess it depends on what you consider what a psychedelic is. But if you consider something that alters the mind for a period of time, would you have to include alcohol in that?
Well, that's an interesting question too.
Yeah. I know this is just coming right off the top of my head, but I've never really thought about it. And so let's see what the story says.
Yes, a recent study spearheaded by Connor Murray at the University of California, Los Angeles, the UCLA, explored the impact of oral THC on neural complexity. Working at the University of Chicago, Murray, alongside his team, utilized an EEG, a non-invasive method to monitor electrical brain activity. It's that soft helmet-looking device covered in electrodes. The research involved two groups of healthy participants. One ingested THC in pill format, while the other was administered a minimal microdose of LSD in a separate session, which the researchers defined here as a dose small enough to produce subtle, or what Psychology Today describes as barely noticeable effects, which is a microdose. By the way, before you read any further, know that this THC wasn't plant-derived or even your typical tablet. The THC pill utilized by the scientists contains synthetic THC, aka Marinol. This also means that they studied straight-up synthetic THC without the entourage effect of having other cannabinoids such as CBD or CBN present.
Additionally, note to assess how both LSD and synthetic THC stack up against the stimulant drug without perception-altering properties. They say here that they administered a medical form of methamphetamine to a group of healthy participants described as something akin to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder that does significant enhance alertness and focus. When within a controlled environment, volunteers were given THC, LSD, and methamphetamine, with some receiving the actual substances while others were given a placebo. When researchers asked each group how high they got comparing the substances, the THC session led to the highest level of intoxication, hitting around a 6 or 7 on the scale of 10. The effects of both methamphetamine and LSD were less pronounced, which is what they expected, considering that LSD administered requirements stated that the effects be barely perceivable. Yeah, they do say that. Additionally, both THC and LSD were found to actually elevate anxiety levels, with THC causing a more significant increase in this regard. Whether THC helps or contributes to anxiety is an ongoing cause for debate. It's pretty understood that this is both dose dependent. Some people say low dose treat anxiety while others raise it. And on the individual, remember that everyone reacts to THC differently. It's a hotly debated topic, such as High Times reported. Recent research suggests that THC helps with sleep in those who take it for anxiety. And just so you know, I have to go let the dog in.
Okay. In related news, there's also evidence that LSD can help treat anxiety, in particular, treating generalized anxiety disorder. Regarding their impact on brain function, an unexpected finding emerged when comparing each drug's influence on neural complexity to a placebo. Only LSD resulted in a statistically significant enhancement in brain activity complexity. Conversely, THC did not significantly change the complexity of EEG signals, with its minor effects consisting of both increases and decreases in activity across various EEG sensors.
Whether or not this means that THC is not psychedelic is still up for debate. The research concludes that the oral THC products do not have psychedelic properties based on the brain activity and a strict definition of what constitutes a psychedelic. That's what I sort of questioned about at the beginning there. First, the changes in the neural complexity that the scientists observed with LSD didn't corroborate with the drug's noticeable effects, which suggests that the diversity of neural signal changes happen even before one feels like they're tripping. Yet, the scenario could vary. If the participants had received a higher dosage of LSD termed a microdose, since the other research was demonstrated a line between neural complexity and the perceived effects of psychedelics at microdose levels.
And of course, the study looked at Marinol rather than regular cannabis, which must change how we view it. And as Psychology Today points out, the term psychedelic means to manifest the mind. And even that is subjective. And plenty would argue not solely based on brain patterns, indicating that the debate on whether cannabis counts as a psychedelic will continue.
I think it will. What do you think? Think it will?
Oh, it will. Yeah. I'm on the side that I believe that cannabis is a minor psychedelic.
Yeah, I can see that. I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just never know. All right. On to the next story.
Coming to us from MJ Biz Daily, Thailand's Wild East cannabis industry braces for regulatory earthquake.
Thousands of cannabis businesses in Thailand are bracing for major legal and regulatory changes as the country looks to curb adult use sales and pivot the industry back to a medicinal market. The government's latest draft cannabis laws looks to end the legal vacuum that unintentionally allowed the recreational cannabis market industry to flourish after a 2022 decision to declassify it as a narcotic.
The new law could radically alter the business prospects for thousands of cannabis store owners and cultivars if they're not fully compliant, depending on how authorities choose to enforce any new rules. Some of the draft laws proposed changes include moving to a license system for personal cultivation away from a simple notification system.
giving police more authority to enforce key components of the law, particularly the ability to seize products from rule-breaking businesses, prohibiting the sale of smokable cannabis outside the medical market, though the government hasn't said how it plans to differentiate between the medical and recreational, and issuing fines and prison sentence for anyone, including business proprietors, who violates the law. Just to keep in mind, the country next to them has a law that allows the death penalty for cannabis, and Thailand's laws weren't the best laws against cannabis before all this changed a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pung
Good luck.
Chaiwit, who is an associate at Bangkok-based Tilek & Gibbons and a member of the law firm's cannabis team, said the pending draft of the Cannabis and Hemp Act prohibits any use of the plant for recreational purposes, including smoking. However, the draft is still under consideration, and the public hearing was just completed at the end of January 2024, he told MJ Biz Daily.
There are still more legislative proceedings which may change that prohibition until the draft Cannabis and Hemp Act becomes effective and implemented. The draft law maintains a ban on most commercial imports of medical cannabis, effectively similar to Canada's situation.
Canada's law doesn't explicitly ban commercial medical imports, but the country has chosen to not allow them and has never answered why. Whether Thailand's new law might encourage or discourage foreign direct investment is uncertain.
Some experts say the Thai government pivots away from adult use cannabis market makes the countries more appealing to international businesses keen to invest. Mitchell Oakes, president of the Toronto-based Quanta Consulting, says that Thai government faces a daunting task in its attempt to reboot the industry.
They let the genie out of the bottle with descheduling, he said. How they put the genie back in the bottle is going to be one of the biggest questions and challenges they will face when drafting the new regulation.
To understand the current situation and potential path for the Thai's cannabis industry, it's important to understand what went wrong. And after Thailand's decriminalized cannabis in 2022, the Ministry of Public Health stated that recreational use was never part of the plan.
Instead, government officials said the public policy goal behind delisting cannabis as a narcotic was to support medical wellness and to help the economy. However, adequate legal and regulatory mechanisms were never implemented to stop adult use cannabis businesses from opening, and political momentum to finalize related regulations was halted by national political issues and never completed.
I remember some discussions I had with some people. There are no proper set of regulations in place when compared to some cannabis jurisdictions in the West. There are some rules, but it's essentially the wild, wild east. Nandan, Mr. C there, CEO of the Bangkok-based terror group, said in a phone interview.
There's no governance. There's so many people doing it. The government doesn't have the manpower to review everything. In the ensuing legal and regulatory vacuum, thousands of cannabis retailers opened, sometimes as simple cannabis stands on the side of the street.
Yeah, well, the government gave away 1 million seeds as well. Like the country's estimated 6,500 plus cannabis stores aren't necessarily illegal, he says, because a lot of them are following the rules that do exist, and some operate in a sort of gray area with cannabis being delisted as a narcotic. The ones who aren't following the rules will be weeded out. I have a feeling a lot of them will close down, according to what he says.
Yeah. From home production here, people can sell it. It's a free-for-all. So in other words, you can go down to your local farmer's market, so to speak.
Yeah.
Part of the problem for home is that the current system is notification based without any of the follow-up from the regulators that is common in other countries.
Other shortcomings of the current legal and regulatory system includes there was no testing requirements, there was no traceability or seed to sale program. Lawmakers did not implement cannabis-specific taxation to offset regulatory compliance costs. It sounded to me at the time that it was just basically, I heard the medical stuff, but a lot of it was just sort of dropped.
Yeah, they basically decriminalized it, which means people can do all this legally. So they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Thailand's draft law looks to implement significant changes to the cannabis industry, removing adult use loopholes and steering the regulated sector back to a focus on health and the economy, which was the original intention of the 2022 law. Cannabis was supposed to be a new cash crop for Thai farmers and businesses. That policy is too foreign to us now, he said.
One of the biggest changes, he says, is the shift to fully license and approval system instead of a notification and registration system for personal cultivation. The draft law contains 7 proposed license types: cultivation, manufacturing, import, export, sales, temporary import, and temporary export.
Yeah, there are 3 sizes for commercial cultivation license, and they're listed here, basically 2 acres, between 2 and 8, and then between 8 and 158. That last one's huge. The proposed law specifically stipulates that adult use sales will not be permitted, and existing stores won't be allowed to sell dried cannabis for recreational smoking.
There you go. Potential cannabis business license must be at least older than 20 and have an address in Thailand and have no convictions in the past 2 years. For a company to get a license, it must have a headquarters in Thailand. The director must be a Thai national, and the company should be majority owned by a Thai national. Oh. Ooh.
Yeah. The draft law proposes to implement certain prohibitions, including banning sales of cannabis and extracts for all adult use purposes, prohibiting online sales, banning sales at unimproved street stalls, and attractive pricing strategies.
Oh, they can't even go. Wow, on the pricing. Police are being given more authority to clamp down on illegal sales and cannabis extracts with more than 0.2%. Yes, I read that right. 0.2%. THC would be classified as a narcotic. Wow. The new law proposes giving police the authority to search a cannabis business and seize products if the company is found to be violating any rules.
Previously, law enforcement did not have such power. Legislators are also considering criminal and financial penalties, including fines and jail time. For instance, illegal cultivation of less than 5 ray might result in a fine of 20,000 baht, which is $560 American, and a year in jail. An illicit cultivation larger than that could be punishable by an $8,420 fine and 3 years of jail time.
You think they just threw that $420 thing in there just to be funny?
Yeah, I find that interesting.
Illegal cannabis exports could be subject to a $14,000 fine and 5 years in jail. That's better than hanging. Where some countries legalize certain cannabis use and rely on export, Thailand is going the opposite route.
Yeah, Chaicharan said commercial medical imports of raw cannabis flower, hemp flower, or extracts will not be allowed. Instead, cannabis imports will be allowed for scientific research, education, and testing. The Thai Red Cross, used by government licensed medical cannabis patients, seeds and new cultivars.
Wow. They caution, however, that those flouting the law, including those openly promoting and selling illicit cannabis online, foreigners selling hash and concentrates, which would be banned under the draft law, and anyone selling imported cannabis should be concerned. Follow the rules of the land and set the right standards, he says. If you don't respect the law, you don't create issues just for yourselves, but potentially also for others, which is true. It's going to be, very true. So, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do we got? Bottom of the hour. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll cover the other stories. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. Off to break we go. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. And we're back with some more news. What do you say, Cindy? Should we get at her?
Get right at her and get her going.
All right, here we go.
Heading over to cannabis.net. Let people die in peaceful bliss. Dr. Sues DEA to let him give psilocybin to terminally ill patients.
All right, Doctor. The Advanced Integrative Medical Science Institute, a clinic co-founded by Dr. Sunil Agrawal, has launched a lawsuit against the drug enforcement agencies. According to the lawsuit, Dr. Agrawal was wrongfully refused clearance by the DEA to give psilocybin to patients who are near death. Dr. Agrawal attempted to take advantage of Washington State's Right to Die Act, which permits the use of experimental drugs for end-of-life treatment. Court filings reveal that Dr. Agrawal asked the DEA for authorization to administer psilocybin to patients on many occasions, but each time he received an unjustified denial. The Controlled Substances Act classifies psilocybin as a Schedule I substance because it has historically been shown to have no known therapeutic benefits. Nevertheless, the records mentioned that psilocybin is presently undergoing stage 3 clinical studies and has given the designation of breakthrough therapeutic status by the FDA twice.
The court filings stress that if the DEA refuses to grant Dr. Agrawal the access to psilocybin under both the CSA and the RTT, it must justify its decision based on legal statuses and established agency precedents. It's worth nothing that Dr. Agarwal holds a DEA license allowing him to prescribe drugs classified under Schedules 2 to 5. Furthermore, the document outlined that the doctor's efforts to obtain permission from the DEA. Initially, he argued for the use of psilocybin under RTT laws without needing a special permit, but this was denied. He then requested a special waiver, citing previous instances where similar waivers had been granted for the therapeutic use of cannabis in pediatric cases. Despite presenting such precedents, the doctor's requests were consistently rejected, leading to his demand for a coherent explanation from the DEA regarding its decision in light of existing regulations and precedents.
Dr. Agarwal attends to individuals grappling with advanced stage cancer. Among those are those enduring severe and incapacitated anxiety and depression unresponsive to FDA-approved treatments. Drawing upon his professional expertise and evaluations of his patients, Dr. Agarwal explored the potential of psilocybin therapy with certain individuals, discussing both the associated risks and potential benefits. He stated that those patients expressed a willingness to undergo psilocybin treatment after providing informed consent. Catherine Tucker, representing Agarwal and Ames alongside the National Psychedelics Association, conveyed to Law 360 that the prolonged legal disputes resulting from the DEA's refusals have impeded access to a medicine that physicians believe could alleviate the anxiety and depression of terminally ill patients.
Right to Try aims to grant terminally ill patients access to promising experimental medications, recognizing the urgency of their situation and the impartiality of waiting for the lengthy process of a new drug approval to conclude, Tucker emphasized. The doctor and the DEA have been at odds over his attempts to provide psilocybin to patients who are near death for a number of years. But as the brief states, the DEA stated in 2022 that it did not believe that giving the medicine to individuals who were near death would be in keeping with public health and safety.
Additionally, the doctor contends in his brief that instead of allowing him to offer the medicine under the right to try provisions, the DEA insisted he register as a researcher to procure the medicine for his patients. Dr. Agarwal argues that this requirement would compel him to develop a study protocol and seek FDA approval, contradicting the RTT law. Furthermore, go ahead.
Furthermore, Law 360 reported on a related case where the Ninth Circuit panel in October instructed the DEA to elucidate its rationale for maintaining psilocybin as a Schedule 1 substance. This directive came after the agency summarily dismissed Agarwal's petition for reclassifying psilocybin as Schedule 2, a category reserved for drugs with currently accepted medical use under severe restrictions. The legal battle between the doctor and the DEA encapsulates broader legal challenges and ethical considerations surrounding access to novel treatments for terminal illness. On one hand, the DEA's refusal to grant clearance for psilocybin treatment underscores the regulatory complexities, and sporadic hurdles that physicians and patients face in accessing experimental therapies. The case raises questions about the DEA's interpretation and application of existing statuses, particularly in the context of end-of-life care and patients' rights to pursue alternative treatments under the right to try laws.
Furthermore, the disagreement touches on basic ethical requirements in the medical field, in addition to legal nuances. It is urgent and compassionate to provide terminally ill patients with access to potentially helpful medicine, since they frequently face excruciating pain and few alternatives for therapy. Dr. Agarwal's support for psilocybin therapy highlights the moral need of putting patients' welfare and autonomy first, especially when traditional therapies have failed to adequately relieve patients' symptoms and misery. In the end, the legal issues surrounding Dr. Agarwal's attempts to give terminal sick patients psilocybin highlight the necessity of a sophisticated strategy that strikes a balance between legal requirements and moral obligations. As the case develops, it demands for a compassionate and evidence-based approach to guarantee that patients with life-threatening illnesses can access potentially beneficial therapies in a timely and dignified manner. It also prompts a critical examination of the current regulatory framework governing access to experimental treatments. Here, here.
Yeah. In conclusion,
Yeah.
the lawsuit filed by the doctor against the DEA represents a pivotal moment in the ongoing discourse surrounding access to innovative treatments for terminally ill patients. The legal battle highlights the intricate interplay between regulatory frameworks, ethical considerations, and the imperative to prioritize patient welfare. As the case unfolds, it prompts a critical reevaluation of existing laws and policies governing access to experimental therapies, particularly in the context of end-of-life care. Beyond legal complexities, the dispute underscores the moral obligation to provide compassionate and evidence-based care to individuals facing life-limiting illnesses. Dr. Agwal's advocacy for psilocybin therapy serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of patient autonomy and the relentless pursuit of solutions to alleviate suffering. Ultimately, the outcome of this legal challenge will have far-reaching implications for the broader healthcare landscape, shaping the future of access to innovative treatments for terminally ill patients.
There you go. Exactly. It's the guy's. He's got that license to do Schedule 2 to 5 or 2 to 7, whatever it was.
Yep. Yeah, 2 to 5. So,
are they worried that the psilocybin is going to kill people who are basically at end of life?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
No, it blows my mind.
Yeah,
and good on him for fighting the DEA and taking it all the way to court.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's the battle that's going on here in Canada too.
Yep, sure is.
And, yeah, we have that SAP program, but it's yeah, exactly.
Making SAPs of us all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go. On to the next story.
Coming to us from StratCan. BC allows smoking, vaping cannabis on public patios. Cannabis stores can now promote places to consume.
BC has announced changes to its cannabis regulations that allow retail stores to promote a place to consume cannabis or spend time after consuming cannabis. Smoking and vaping cannabis on public patios is also now permitted where cannabis and vaping tobacco are already allowed, subject to local or indigenous government bylaws and other rules.
BC first engaged the public about these proposed changes in 2023 as part of a broader industry outreach initiative. Previously, these were both specifically not allowed under BC's regulations. The restrictions on associations, with another business in Section 5.1.7 of the CRS and PRS license handbooks have been removed. The language restricting the promotion of a place to consume cannabis or spend time after consuming cannabis is also removed from the CRS and the PRS licensee handbooks.
The provincial government notes that cannabis consumption is still not allowed in cannabis stores. Licensees must ensure any cannabis consumption near the store is not within their establishment. Smoking and vaping are prohibited in all workplaces and indoor public places in BC. Tobacco and vapor products can be used on an outdoor hospitality patio, such as a patio of a bar, casino, or cafe, as long as it is within the buffer zone and there are no open windows, doors, or active air intakes between the patio and the hospitality venue.
BC has been increasingly focusing on the issue of consumption spaces and cannabis tourism, launching a province-wide engagement paper last year. The What We Heard report from that engagement process was released in January 2023. The report showed significant public support for consumption spaces, balanced with concerns from law enforcement and public health agencies. Jacelyn Fatoa, the executive director of the Retail Cannabis Council of BC, told StratCan that the organization is supportive of the small step forward.
Exactly. Small step. But unfortunately, it takes small steps to get that big one sometimes. So,
yeah.
These are necessary changes, especially for non-cannabis primary businesses. We hope it will encourage them to embrace and promote cannabis-friendly consumption venues and events. The team at at our LRCC believe that these changes are small but positive steps towards reducing stigma and supporting BC's potentially for cannabis tourism. We are optimistic that these are the first step towards a more comprehensive cannabis consumption strategy from the BC government, and we are hopeful that these changes signals an embrace of cannabis tourism by our sitting government. We encourage regulators to explore further support for the budding cannabis tourism in BC.
Jeff Gennard, who's the executive director of the Alliance of Beverage Licenses, ABLE BC, which also offers services for BC's retail cannabis sector, says he's excited by the announcement. This is great news for BC's cannabis, hospitality, and tourism industries, and we're immensely grateful to our government partners for their support.
Not only can cannabis businesses now promote places to consume cannabis, but the government has also aligned cannabis consumption rules with the rules of smoking and vaping tobacco, which just makes sense. It gives businesses much more flexibility to serve the cannabis-friendly customers. Like we have the Smoke-Free Ontario Act here, and we can't smoke cigarettes or cannabis within a building or vaporize it.
Yep.
Go ahead.
We're also excited that government is taking further steps towards cannabis consumption lounges, which will create an entirely new dimension for our growing industry, he adds. And as we discussed with Solicitor General Mike Farnworth recently, we still have a lot of work to do to support legally licensed retailers. But these small steps in the right direction are clear signs that government is listening. And we as an industry are making important progress.
One cannabis retailer in Cumberland is currently developing a community space that includes an outdoor cannabis consumption area. British Columbia's stance on indoor smoking and vaping restrictions have made outdoor consumption spaces like the one in Cumberland an attractive option, says Max Odendag, who has been assisting Michael Anjaw, the owner of Cumberland's BC's True Green Cannabis, on their consumption space.
Yeah, we're excited to be in a position to explore how to break down the stigma of cannabis consumption and find a way to integrate that into healthy community gathering space. Odendag told Stratcan late last year.
Oh, yeah, they need the vapor lounges. There's no doubt about that. It's just what kind of form they're going to be in. They're the vaping tobacco thing, smoking thing is a step. But we'll see what happens over time. See if we can get that even bigger. So, all right. On to our next story, and it is now
us from cannabis.net. Big Pharma, the Big Pharma Double Standard, ADHD Medication and Meth, more alike than we'd like to admit.
Double standards of pharma. As adults, it's our responsibility to protect our youth and set them up for success. After all, they're the ones who will inherit this planet after we're gone. That's why we typically discourage drug use for teens and kids. Research shows that the human brain continues developing well into our mid-90s. Messing that with vital growth could have lifelong implications. So when I read a recent article honing in on how cannabis impacts still developing adolescent brains, it definitely gave me pause. The research suggested that even occasional cannabis use may hamper key cognitive abilities in teens, such as memory, verbal skills, and attention. If true, that's alarming news for your youth health and safety.
But the study also made me think, do we scrutinize common pharmaceuticals prescribed to children with the same level of scientific rigor? Stimulant medications like Adderall and Ritalin are handed out like candy these days to millions of kids with an ADHD diagnosis. Just like cannabis, these are powerful substances that alter neurotransmitters and signaling in the brain. From a chemical standpoint, prescription acetaminophen, no, I'm not reading that right. My glasses are in the way. But they aren't all that different from cocaine or meth. They're just carefully manufactured and dosed. Yet few blink an eye at their widespread pediatric use. You have to wonder, do these meds also shape and reshape malleable young minds? And if so, are the outcomes necessarily good?
Yeah, I was always told that, and I had never read it about the connection of like Rididol, and those other drugs being no different than from cocaine or meth. And
Yep.
now we're reading about it. And they're
Yep.
giving these to young kids. I'm not suggesting medical conspiracy theories or anything so extreme, but I do think it's fair to ask tough questions regarding social assumptions about drug safety and medical necessity. If cannabis warrants extra investigation regarding youth and neurological impact, shouldn't widely popular stimulants prescribed to struggling children? In this article, I'm breaking down what science suggests so far about potential cognitive effects of common ADHD meds, including Ritalin, Adderall, and their chemical cousins. I'm approaching this analysis of very real pediatric challenges, but also aware of America's tendency to over-medicate in lieu of alternative strategies. My goal isn't condemnation, but rather constructive dialogue. If we don't carefully monitor pharmacological impacts on the most vulnerable developing brains, who will?
Mm-hmm. ADHD medications refer to stimulants and non-stimulants used to treat attention deficit hyperactive disorder symptoms. The most common prescribed ADHD meds in the US are methylphenidate, and the brand name is Ritalin or Concerta, and various amphetamine salts, which are branded Adderall or Vanies. These stimulants boost levels of dopamine and neuroepinephrine in the brain, neurotransmitters involved in concentration, reward pathways, and impulse control. By chemically altering signaling, the medications can improve focus and temper hyperactive symptoms of ADHD.
Use of these medications has skyrocketed over the past 2 decades, especially among the young. One survey found almost 10% of kids aged 4 to 17 have received an ADHD diagnosis, 42% increase since 2003. Pharmacies filled over 43 million ADHD med prescriptions just for those under 18. This is back in 2019. That translates to approximately 1 in every 7 American kids taking powerful brain stimulants before reaching adulthood.
That's crazy.
Wow.
For context, stimulant prescriptions rates are 3 to 4 times higher in the US compared to the UK and other Western peers. This pattern holds true across American demographics as well. White youth are 66% more likely to receive ADHD meds compared to Hispanic kids, and over 2.5 more times more likely than their Black peers. And when we look at the clinical packaging for FDA blessings, ADHD stimulants have a lot in common with illicit methamphetamine. Stick with me here.
Chemically speaking, substances like Adderall, Ritalin, and meth belong to the amphetamine class of stimulants. They differ by only a molecule or two. For example, meth has an extra meth group compared to amphetamine itself. Not a huge difference when it comes to brain effects, though. Both prescription and crystal meth surge of dopamine and norepinephrine, signaling through similar pathways involved in mood, cognition, and movement. In therapeutic contexts, these neurotransmitter spikes can improve focus and concentration. Outside medical oversight, they create a stimulating high with the risk of abuse and long-term changes.
Make no mistake, used properly under close supervision, ADHD meds offer real benefits to struggling kids, but we tend to downplay uncomfortable similarities to illicit stimulants, perhaps to avoid stigma. Still, from a neurochemistry perspective, prescription methamphetamines aren't so different from cocaine or meth after all, and we really don't need to be prescribing them anywhere near as much as we are. If abuse of addictive drugs like meth rewires young developing brains for the worse, wouldn't smaller doses of medical meth do the same? What if stimulant-fueled concentration comes from the cost of mental health later on in life? Are we over-medicating childhood uniqueness out of millions of one-day adults?
These are uncomfortable but necessary questions as ADHD diagnoses or stimulant prescription rates soar. applying the same level of scientific scrutiny given cannabis seems only prudent and ethical, because once pediatric neurobiological doorways close, they may not be open again. This goes on for a bit more there, and I see we're getting a little short on the time, but I think the article has made its point that these prescription drugs for the kids, as I said, they're similar to cocaine and the illicit drugs.
Yep.
So, all right, there we go. On to the next story.
Coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference, Spain's Ministry of Health begins process of enacting medical cannabis regulations.
Spain's Minister of Health has started the process of developing a royal decree through which it plans to approve the regulation of cannabis for medical use. Before a royal decree is officially issued, the public will be allowed to provide input, with Spain's government having set up an email address dedicated to receiving such input. The government in Spain is seeking to finalize a rigorous measure that is based on the best scientific evidence available. Such a measure will reportedly include periodic evaluations to examine the effectiveness of Spain's eventual medical cannabis regulation.
The ministry addresses the regulation based on the conclusions of the Subcommittee of the Congress of Deputies for the Analysis of Experiences with the Regulation of Cannabis for Medical Use, which called on the Spanish Agency for Medicines and Health Products to prepare a roadmap to approve the regulation, Spain's government stated in a press release. Spain's Secretary of State for Health, Javier Padilla, recently met with the European Observatory of Cannabis Consumption and Cultivation, as well as with industry associations and members of scientific community. Secretary Padilla is also expected to meet soon with the Spanish Observatory of Medicinal Cannabis.
A recent meeting at Spain's Ministry of Health was attended by representatives of the General Council of Medical Colleges and General Council of Official Colleges of Pharmacists, in addition to the Spanish Society of Palliative Care, the Spanish Society of Pain, the Spanish Society of Epilepsy, the Spanish Society of Studies on Alcohol, Spanish Society of Hospital Pharmacy, the Spanish Society of the list just keeps on going on. That's like the whole paragraph. All these people are all involved in this. The proposed regulation guarantees that the quality of the products and the safety of patients, enabling the legal avenues available to have therapeutic compounds based on standardized cannabis preparations that have shown evidence in relieving pain and the suffering of patients, considering the oral administration of these compounds as it is the most appropriate in terms of therapeutic effectiveness and the safety for patients. The government's release noted. Boy, there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah, the regulation is designed to evolve dynamically, allowing new elements to be incorporated as more information and the experience of the therapeutic cannabis program becomes available. In addition, it will contribute to generating more and better evidence on the use of cannabinoids for therapeutic purposes. What is currently being proposed by Spain's government is a national medical cannabis program that is being described as being similar to what is currently in place in European nations like Portugal, the United Kingdom, and Norway. Those nations' medical cannabis regulations are much more limited compared to what is in place in Germany, and much more restrictive compared to what is found in many parts of North America.
Now, Spain's government resumed the push to medical cannabis regulation started last month after previous efforts experienced numerous setbacks in recent years. An eventual medical cannabis regulation measure in Spain is not expected to include cannabis clubs, which operate in many parts of Spain and are very popular among the suffering patients. Cannabis clubs operate in a gray area of Spain's law and serve as a primary source of medical cannabis for many Spanish patients.
Barcelona's government is actively trying to shut down the hundreds of cannabis clubs that operate within the Barcelona area. Spain's cannabis industry is estimated to be worth $238 €8.5 million in 2024, according to analysis by Euromonitor International. Euromonitor estimates that Spain's medical cannabis market alone is worth an estimated €27.3 million as of right now this year. Those figures are estimated to rise in 2025, and even further later on. To €358.4 million and 107.6 respectively.
There you go. All right. Gonna shut that one down. Yeah, that's I always thought there was some type of legalization. Cannabis was held there. There's all those lounges and stuff, and
yeah.
Here it's still sort of like it was with Canada when we had our lounges. We weren't selling cannabis in them, but they were legal before. Well, they weren't legal, but they were running in a gray area before legalization.
Operated, and we had some really great cannabis, gatherings, and I mean those are all shutting down. There was another one that shut down for the summer too. The ICC isn't happening.
No, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, this coming year?
This coming year, they put in an announcement probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah. It's too bad. Look
It
into
is.
that more. Yeah, exactly. All right. Our last story of the day.
Oh, we are heading over to cannabis.net, exploring the 5 negative stereotypes about cannabis created by Dare in the 1980s. I remember these.
Oh, yeah. It stigmatized a lot of people. You can sort of see them in the picture that's part of it right there. We don't need to read it all, being that we're short on time, but let's just see what the 5 things are, and let's just sort of touch on some of them. For example, the first one here says the lazy stoner stereotype.
Paints cannabis users as lethargic, unintelligent, and devoid of ambition.
Yeah, exactly. And they said that for so long, and but yet, a lot of people are business owners. A lot of people are working and they're consuming cannabis. They say as its core, this stereotype stems from the idea that cannabis consumption leads directly to a lack of motivation, equating recreational medical use with an inability to achieve or contribute meaningfully to society. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
The next one.
Pardon me. The munchie monster. This is a stereotype, is one deeply rooted in cannabis culture, often portrayed with a mix of humor and slight derision. It describes the seemingly uncontrollable urge to snack, particularly on unhealthy foods after consuming cannabis. And it paints a picture of indulgence, excess, lack of self-control, feeding into broader negative perceptions of irresponsibility and hedonism.
And if that was all true, everybody who consumed cannabis would be, obese, overweight, whatever, because they're just eating all these unhealthy foods that apparently they claim. But there's reports of saying how people who consume cannabis are, can lose weight.
Yeah. It for me, I mean, like I'm a big girl anyway. For my history, like my stance is big, but for me, I lost weight, because I got more conscious of what I was putting into my body instead of just trying to feed, my emotions, right?
Yeah. The next one is the perpetual teen. In the lexicon of stoner stereotypes, the perpetual teen stands out as a particularly pregnant cultural caricature. It paints a picture of an adult whose lifestyle choices, behaviors, and interests have seemingly arrested in the halcyon days of adolescence. The stereotype draws an imaginary of immaturity and an aversion to the commitment and an implied nativity due to the lack of worldly experience, suggesting a life led in personal pursuit of leisure and pleasure akin to that of carefree teenagers. Yeah.
It allows us to connect with the kid that's in all of us.
It does,
and,
yeah.
People on the outside don't get that. Like, I mean, it doesn't make us, it's not a bad thing.
No. Go ahead.
Not a bad thing at all. The paranoid pothead is a stereotype that has woven itself into the fabric of cannabis culture, casting a shadow of doubt and suspicion around the consumption of the herb. The image conjured is one of a user gripped by fear and anxiety, overly suspicious and jumping at the shadows, often comically overreacting to benign situations. This stereotype plays into the narrative that cannabis inherently leads to heightened paranoia, suggesting a loss of rational control and a descent into irrational fear.
Now, could some of that fear and all that because of the people's concern of it being against the law, and that causes their anxiety that if they get caught, they could be arrested and go to jail?
Yeah, and I believe that's where the majority of the paranoia comes from. And in the last few, I mean, we have to remember that the majority of people that use cannabis like us are patients, and a lot of those people are mental health patients. So paranoia and kid-like play into that. I mean, again, not negative things.
Yep. Now the last one, I think, is the hippie stoner. This stereotype is one of the most enduring images within the cannabis culture, tracing its roots back to the 1960 counterculture movement. This stereotype is embellic of peace, love, and laid-back lifestyle, often associated with long hair, tie-dye apparel, and free-spirit approach to life. The hippie stoner is portrayed as a public or figure deeply connected with nature, an advocate for social change, and a vocal opponent of establishment politics.
That all sounds wonderful. Let's go do it.
Well, I gotta say it's gotta be a lot of lifetime hippie stoners out there.
That sounds like me and all my friends, proudly.
Sounds good. Yeah. So there you go. There's some of the things that some of it creates the stigma, and time. Just time. It's gonna take a long time.
Yeah.
100 years of abuse, it doesn't go away in a short little time. So
No, we still have more fighting to do. We'll get there.
That's right. So you just got to keep fighting cannabis law reform. Keep speaking up for changes. And that's why you see me running these promos for the Global Marijuana March in Toronto, because laws need to be changed, even though cannabis is legal. There's things that need to be changed. Everything from normal Canada's got the petition going on the THC milligram limits, trying to get them increased. But there's also things such as even the possession limits. Why should we be restricted to 30 grams when we leave the store?
Yep.
Yeah.
And some stores are really I've been in stores where I can go in and I can say, okay, look, listen, I've come in for this. And some of them say, okay, well, that's 60 grams altogether. So here's one. And okay, and then here's the other, and I just have to pay twice. Some ask you to leave the store and come back. And there is one that I've been to. I don't want to mention who, because they're also one of them. But leaving and come back is not good enough. You have to wait 24 hours, and they try to remember who comes in.
And for example, if you lived in the city like in Toronto, where everybody's complaining about the overabundance in stores, all you have to do is walk out of one and walk 20 feet to the left, to the right, maybe 40 feet, and walk into the next one.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So some changes need to be made, and the only way they're going to be made is if people speak up. And that's one of the reasons why we got to keep doing these rallies that we've been doing to get cannabis legalized. Now we need to do them to improve legalization.
Yep.
Anything you want to say before we leave?
No, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for today. It was a great show.
No, thank you. And thank you for being part of it. From the Legacy420.com news desk, that's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. Thanks to our sponsors, Legacy420.com, Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, and Limestone City Hydroponics. And to our viewers, don't forget, catch our next Cannabis and Psychedelic Educational News broadcast with Kelly and myself, Monday morning at 10 a.m. Don't forget to educate, medicate, incarcerate, right? Got to get that in there, too. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.